Million-dollar paychecks, luxury mansions, flashy cars. This is the glamorous image most people have of boxing's golden era. But here's the part they never show you: squandered fortunes, bankruptcy, and lives unraveling into poverty. They were boxing's biggest stars, idolized, unstoppable, drowning in wealth. And yet many of them died broke. How do world champions go from earning millions to selling trinkets on the street just to eat? Let's break it all down. Starting with the biggest name of them all, Muhammad Ali's name still echoes through boxing history.
I am the king of the world! Hold it, hold it, hold it. Pretty. Hold it, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world! I shook up the world!
He was a showman, a poet, a fighter who could light up any room, and he lived like it. Picture him at his prime: velvet robes, a fleet of luxury cars, and that unmistakable smile. Over his career, he earned an estimated $57 million, including multi-million-dollar purses for landmark fights. In an era before pay-per-view money changed the sport, that kind of earning power put him in a league of his own. But Ali didn't just want to win in the ring. He wanted to enjoy every perk that came with being the heavyweight champion of the world. Beneath the surface, though, things weren't as secure as they looked. Ali's refusal to fight in the Vietnam War in 1967 on religious and moral grounds cost him dearly. He lost his heavyweight title, was banned from boxing for over 3 years, and spent those years locked in a battle with the U.S. government. The legal fees and lost earnings during what should have been his prime fighting years left a serious dent in his finances. By the time he made his comeback in 1970, Ali was facing just as tough a fight outside the ring as he was inside it. His financial troubles didn't end when the court battles did. Even when the big paydays returned, his spending never slowed. Lavish homes in multiple states, sports cars lined up in long driveways, and a Bentley that drew stares wherever he went. Ali's lifestyle was the stuff of legends. He didn't just live large, he lived like royalty. And he gave like it too. Friends, family, and even total strangers could count on Ali's help, sometimes with little thought for what it meant for his own bank account. Financial education wasn't part of his upbringing, and worse, the people who handled his fortune didn't always have his best interests at heart. Bad investments and poor advice chipped away at his fortune, and he never had the tools to stop the bleeding. By the 1980s, Ali was still the most famous boxer on the planet, but behind the image, the money was running out. Medical bills started piling up after he was diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome. Add in a string of investments that went nowhere, and the reality set in. His fortune wasn't as bottomless as it once seemed. Studies show up to 60% of professional athletes go broke within 5 years of retirement, and he came dangerously close to joining those ranks. But in a moment of strategy, he did something that saved him. In 2006, he sold 80% of his image rights for roughly $50 million, then placed that into a family trust to cover his escalating medical bills and provide for his family. It wasn't just smart, it was survival. That decision gave him the stability he needed in his later years, a rare move that saved his legacy off the canvas. Ali's story is proof of just how thin the line is between global icon and financial ruin. Fame, fortune, and charisma are no guarantee against money troubles, especially in a world where the next payday always feels just out of reach. And the pattern didn't end with him. For many boxing legends, there was no image rights deal waiting to save them. Their stories didn't end with a smart decision. They ended with heartbreak, betrayal, and in some cases, complete collapse. Next up, Smokin' Joe Frazier, a heavyweight icon whose life after boxing looked nothing like the roaring crowds and bright lights of Madison Square Garden. That 1971 fight of the century against Muhammad Ali wasn't just a sporting event, it was a cultural moment. Frazier walked away with a reported $2.5 million. In the early 70s, that kind of money seemed like it could last forever. But for Frazier, the future held a much different reality. He spent his later years living above a small gym in Philadelphia, training young fighters, far from the spotlight and comfort. Not exactly the ending you'd expect for a man who once ruled the world. It's easy to picture Frazier blowing his fortune on flashy cars or extravagant parties, but the truth is more complicated. His downfall wasn't about reckless luxury. It was about generosity. He grew up with nothing, and when money finally came, he felt a responsibility to share it. Research describes how he disrespected easy money because it came too quickly, leading him to spend freely and help anyone who asked. He famously gave financial support to Muhammad Ali during his ban from boxing, even while Ali mocked him in public. For most people, that would have been a deal-breaker, but Frazier's loyalty ran deep. He looked out for friends, family, and even acquaintances, never really thinking about how those acts of kindness would add up. The problem was the money did run out. Frazier's earnings, while massive for the time, couldn't sustain the long line of people who depended on him. He didn't have the financial education or the right advisors to help him protect his wealth. The research on athletes from disadvantaged backgrounds shows this is a common story. Sudden riches, little preparation, and a system that doesn't teach them how to manage it all. He became a prime example of how easy money can slip away just as fast as it comes in. By the end of his life, Frazier's fortune was gone. He found purpose in the gym, mentoring young fighters and staying close to the sport that had given him everything. There was no mansion, no luxury cars, just a small space above the gym and the respect of those he trained. It's a bittersweet image. The former champion passing on lessons from his own hard road, hoping to help the next generation avoid the same mistakes. His story stands as a reminder that kindness and loyalty, while admirable, can come at a steep price when paired with sudden wealth and little guidance. But not every boxer's downfall followed the same pattern. Sometimes even careful planning and discipline can't protect against forces beyond your control. Do you remember Dick Tiger, the two-time world champion who ruled the middleweight and light heavyweight divisions back in the 60s? He built his reputation on grit and determination, winning titles that put him among the sport's elite. But Tiger's journey outside the ring was anything but straightforward. For him, the real fight was always about more than just boxing. It was about trying to build a future in a world that never made it easy. Tiger's financial struggles started early, thanks to the kind of management that seemed more common than not in boxing. His manager, Jersey Jones, worked outside the powerful boxing networks, which meant he had some independence but little leverage. That independence came at a steep cost. Jones, despite his loyalty, often negotiated deals that left Tiger with smaller purses than his rivals. There was no big promotional machine behind him, no team of financial advisors watching his back. The lack of strategic planning and poor connections meant Tiger's victories rarely translated into lasting security. He poured what he could into business ventures, buying a beauty shop for his sister, a service station, a bookstore, and a cosmetics shop in Lagos, in hopes of building something to fall back on. But what really shattered his plans was something no amount of discipline could prevent: politics. During the Biafran War in the late 60s, Tiger openly supported the Biafran movement, believing in the cause and wanting to help his people. The Nigerian government saw things differently. They branded him a traitor, banned him from returning home, and seized everything he owned. His Lagos businesses, his Mercedes, and all the life savings he'd invested were wiped out in a single government order. Years of hard work and every dollar he'd managed to save disappeared overnight. The loss was more than financial. It was personal, a lifetime's effort erased by forces far beyond his control. After his boxing career ended, Tiger's reality changed completely. With nothing left from his years in the ring, he moved to New York and took a job as a security guard at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Imagine the scene: a former world champion, once cheered by thousands, now spending quiet nights on patrol beneath priceless art, his championship belts replaced by a security badge. The contrast is almost too much to believe, but it was real. His fall wasn't about reckless spending or bad habits. It was about being caught on the wrong side of history and losing everything because of it. His story isn't just about money lost. It's about how even the toughest fighters can be brought down by things they never saw coming. And as you'll see, Sometimes the blows that hurt most come not from politics, but from the toll the sport itself takes on a fighter's mind and body. Emil Griffith was one of those rare fighters who seemed to have it all: speed, style, and the kind of versatility that made him a champion across multiple weight divisions. He took on the best of the 1960s, Benny Paret, Nino Benvenuti, Dick Tiger, and came out on top more often than not. For a while, Griffith looked like the very definition of boxing success. But by the end of his life, the man who once held the world's attention was living in a small apartment on Long Island, struggling to get by. The road from stardom to hardship was anything but straightforward. The real cost of Griffith's career came not just in bruises and scars, but in something far more lasting. After nearly 20 years in the ring and over 100 fights, he developed dementia pugilistica, commonly known now as CTE, a degenerative brain condition caused by years of repeated blows to the head. The signs crept in slowly, and back then, nobody really understood what was happening to fighters like him. Then, in 1992, tragedy struck again. Griffith was the victim of a brutal assault in New York City that left him hospitalized for months with severe brain damage and multiple fractures. It was a devastating blow on top of everything he'd already endured. These health battles took a heavy toll on his finances. The combination of brain trauma and physical injuries made it nearly impossible for him to work steadily. By 2005, he was commuting by bus to a low-wage job as a security guard, scraping together what he could. There was no hint of the wealth or fame he'd once enjoyed. Just a modest apartment and mounting bills. His declining health meant he needed full-time care in his later years, and the cost of professional support quickly became overwhelming. The boxing world offered no healthcare safety net for retired champions like Griffith, leaving him to shoulder the burden alone. It's a hard truth. Even the most disciplined athlete can see everything slip away when medical bills stack up, and there's nowhere to turn for help. His story is a harsh reminder of how the physical punishment of boxing doesn't just end careers, it can wipe out everything a fighter has built. The system was never set up to protect these athletes once the crowd stopped cheering. For Griffith, the fight never really left him. It just changed shape, showing up in hospital rooms and long, quiet nights far from the spotlight. But as rough as his final years were, not every champion's downfall came from the same place. Sometimes what brings a legend down isn't injury or illness. It's the choices they make when the money is rolling in. And for some, the party never really stopped, even when the fortune did. Ruben Olivarez, El Puis, was a superstar in Mexican boxing during the 1960s and 70s. A knockout artist with dynamite in his fists and a charisma that made him a household name. He packed arenas, set knockout records, and his name was always in the headlines.
Sin embargo, el problema para esta contienda, bien recordamos, era la condición física de Rubén Olivarez.
The Mexican press called him the undisputed champion of the bender and the cabaret, capturing both his dominance in the ring and his wild reputation outside of it. For a while, it looked like Olivarez had it all: money, fame, and a string of titles. But what happened after the crowds faded tells a different story. Olivarez became known for his relentless partying. He loved fast cars and tequila, and his nights out became legendary. Clubs, women, and a never-ending celebration. These weren't just rumors. They were part of his public image. The spending wasn't just frequent, it was constant. Every payday turned into another spree, with little thought for the future or for saving. He didn't just enjoy the good life, he lived it at full speed, embodying the phrase, "Easy come, easy go." His fortune, which should have set him up for life, started slipping away almost as soon as it arrived. But his downfall wasn't only about his own choices. His wealth attracted a crowd of hangers-on, people who saw an opportunity and took it. Greedy friends, bad business deals, and advisors who didn't have his interests at heart all played a role. As Olivarez himself confessed, "Let the assholes steal from me." That kind of resignation shows how aware he was of the exploitation, but it also points to a sense of helplessness, or maybe just exhaustion. Instead of shutting these people out, he let them stay, and the money disappeared even faster. There was another side to Olivarez, though. He was generous to a fault. He bought houses for his siblings, helped his father open businesses, and was always ready to lend a hand to people in his neighborhood. This generosity, while admirable, went unchecked and unplanned. Without any real financial guidance or long-term thinking, even the most heartfelt gestures contributed to his financial decline. The mix of reckless spending, misplaced trust, and unmanaged generosity created a perfect storm that unraveled everything he'd built. By the time the spotlight faded, Olivarez was left with little to show for his legendary career. In his later years, he could be found at tianguis, traditional Mexican markets, selling memorabilia and posing for photos with fans just to get by. The contrast was striking, from world champion to hustling for a living in the markets. His story is a clear reminder of how quickly fortunes can vanish when discipline and planning are missing, no matter how bright the star once burned. But not every champion followed the same path. Some managed to rewrite the script, building stability and success long after the final bell. Do you remember Jose Torres? If you followed boxing in the 1960s, his name was impossible to miss. He became the first Latino to win the light heavyweight title, taking on legends like Willie Pastrana and Eddie Cotton, with a blend of skill and determination that made him stand out. But what really sets him apart isn't just the fights he won, it's the life he built after hanging up his gloves.
In 1953, and lost it to Sugar Ray Robinson 2 years later. After a brief retirement, he came back into the fight game.
While most peers struggled, Torres never faced evidence of bankruptcy or destitution, thanks to his diverse roles and careful planning. He became a rare example of a champion who managed his success well beyond the ring. After his fighting days, Torres made a series of smart moves that kept him on steady ground. His connection to boxing stayed strong, but he shifted from the spotlight to the decision-making side. From 1984 to 1988, he served as commissioner for the New York State Athletic Commission, a powerful administrative post that put him at the center of the sports business. This wasn't just a job for show. He made real decisions that shaped the careers of fighters and the direction of boxing in New York. Soon after, Torres took on another major responsibility, serving as president of the World Boxing Organization from 1990 to 1995. The WBO was gaining importance in those years, and his steady leadership helped it earn respect in the boxing world. These roles brought him a reliable income and kept him influential in the sport, all without the risks that came with being in the ring. But Torres didn't just rely on his boxing connections. He carved out a whole new path as a writer and commentator. His columns appeared in major publications like The New York Post, El Diario, La Prensa, and The Village Voice. He was more than a retired athlete. He became a respected voice, sharing insights about boxing and society that reached a broad audience. His writing career wasn't just a side project, it was a major part of his financial stability. Torres's literary achievements included co-authoring Sting Like a Bee, a biography of Muhammad Ali that became a key source for understanding Ali's life and legacy. Years later, he wrote Fire and Fear, The Inside Story of Mike Tyson, a book that offered a detailed look at Tyson's rise and the complexities behind his career. The Tyson biography even inspired an HBO television movie. These works brought him both recognition and steady royalties, proving that his influence could reach far beyond his fighting days. His story isn't filled with drama or scandal, but that's what makes it stand out. Torres used his skills and reputation to build a secure, respected life after boxing, showing that with foresight and adaptability, it's possible to avoid the pitfalls that trapped so many others. His path shows how intellectual and administrative pursuits can outlast a boxer's prime. Bob Foster's story takes a different turn from the usual tales of post-boxing hardship. Known for ruling the light heavyweight division in the late 60s and early 70s, Foster was a knockout artist with a reach and power that made him a nightmare for opponents like Dick Tiger and Mike Quarry. But beyond the ropes, he faced a reality that forced him to think ahead. Early in his career, he sometimes earned as little as $25 a fight. The pay was so meager that in 1966, he took a job at a bomb factory in Washington, fighting only once that year. Those lean years taught him something that many of his peers missed. Boxing glory could be fleeting, and financial security wasn't guaranteed. That practical mindset stuck with him even as he climbed to the top of his division. Foster never assumed the money would last. He took on heavyweight fights against the likes of Joe Frazier and Ernie Terrell, not because he wanted to, but because he needed the paydays. The risks were high and the rewards unpredictable, but he understood the importance of having a plan for life beyond the ring. His willingness to work outside boxing, even at the height of his career, showed a level of realism and responsibility that set him apart. When his days as a champion ended, Foster didn't wait for trouble to find him. He joined the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department in New Mexico and spent 24 years as a deputy sheriff. He earned respect in uniform just as he once did in the ring, trading punches for public service and finding a new sense of purpose. The steady paycheck and long-term employment gave him the stability so many fighters never found. There were no headlines about bankruptcy or desperate comebacks, just the quiet consistency of a life built on hard work. His story isn't about luck or a single smart move. It's about a pattern of grounded decisions rooted in his early struggles. He never saw himself as too important for a real job, and he didn't let pride or nostalgia keep him from doing what needed to be done. That adaptability and work ethic made all the difference. While others lost fortunes to bad advice or reckless spending, Foster's approach to life after boxing kept him out of trouble and on solid ground. Looking at him, it's clear that the choices made outside the ring can be just as important as any title fight. His life offers a different kind of lesson, one about planning, humility, and the value of steady work. And when you think about all these stories together, it raises bigger questions about what the sport demands from its stars and what needs to change so that future champions don't face the same risks. Think about these legends. Their fists made them famous, their paydays made them rich. But that fame and fortune often came with devastating costs. Muhammad Ali lost millions fighting for his beliefs. Joe Frazier's loyalty left him living above a gym. Ruben Olivarez burned through his wealth in endless parties, and Emil Griffith's health struggles drained away everything he'd earned. For every Jose Torres or Bob Foster who found stability, far too many others didn't. Until mandatory financial literacy programs and real athlete protections become standard, these stories will keep repeating. Without financial education and industry support, even the fiercest champions can lose their last fight outside the ropes. If you found these stories eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share in the comments which boxer's story surprised you most. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.